Former Attorney General Pam Bondi testified behind closed doors Friday in Washington, D.C. regarding the handling of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. Bondi, who was removed from her post as America's top law enforcement officer by Donald Trump in April, spoke to the House Oversight Committee. During her opening remarks, Bondi stated that the department demonstrated an unprecedented commitment to transparency while searching for, collecting, and reviewing the Epstein Files, noting that nearly 3 million pages of material were produced. The committee panel formally summoned Bondi in March, a period just before Trump announced her ouster as his administration's top prosecutor. Committee Chairman James Comer stated that the committee intends to determine if more documents can be legally turned over. Bondi, meanwhile, stated she would not respond to any questions concerning President Trump. The committee's investigation into the matter continues to focus on the release of records mandated by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket exploded on the launchpad during a test in Cape Canaveral on Thursday. The company, owned by Jeff Bezos, stated that no one was injured and all personnel were accounted for following the event. The explosion occurred during what the company called a hot fire test, which involves lighting the engines without releasing the rocket. Officials noted that the incident resulted in the destruction of the launchpad, which is a complicated structure. Building and certifying these launchpads requires significant time, potentially taking as long as a year or even 15 months to construct a replacement. The next step involves an investigation to determine the cause of the malfunction. The company said there was an anomaly during a test. Everybody was a long way away from this rocket as they were conducting what they call a hot fire test, which is light up the engines. However, they'll release the rocket. A federal judge has ordered the removal of President Donald Trump's name from the title of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. The order specifies that the name must be taken off the institution's title, its facade, and all other physical or digital signage and official materials within 14 days. The judge also ruled that the Washington, D.C. venue cannot be renamed without the approval of Congress, and the ruling blocked the center's temporary closure during proposed renovations. A spokesperson for the center stated that the organization would appeal the name change order. The judge's ruling comes after Trump last year announced adding his name to the institution as part of broader rebranding efforts across the nation's capital. The center's board had previously decided to rename the institution, and new lettering bearing his full name was affixed to the front portico. The center's name change order is subject to an appeal, and the ruling also addressed the venue's ability to close for repairs. Police have identified the driver involved in a multi-vehicle crash in Virginia that resulted in 5 deaths and injured dozens. The incident occurred early Friday morning when a bus struck 6 other vehicles. Virginia State Police reported that the crash happened on the southbound side of Interstate 95 as traffic was slowing for a work zone. The bus, operated by E&P Travel, was traveling from New York toward North Carolina. Authorities are investigating the circumstances leading up to the collision, specifically looking into the bus driver's actions before the crash. The crash took place at the 146 miles marker in Stafford County around 2:35 a.m. local time. The investigation confirmed that charges are pending against the bus driver, who has been identified as Jing S. Dong, 48, of Staten Island, New York. Police are continuing to investigate the multi-vehicle crash in Virginia. The overall number of U.S. beef and dairy cattle has shrunk to its lowest level since 1951. This decline in the national herd is attributed by sources to a combination of factors, including drought conditions, rising operating costs for ranchers, and increased industry consolidation. The shrinking size of the cattle population raises questions about the future supply of beef in the United States. The report indicates that these trends are driving the current situation regarding the U.S. cattle herd. The immediate focus remains on how these herd reductions will affect beef prices moving forward. Why the U.S. cattle herd is at a 75-year low, and what it means for beef prices. Drought, rising operating costs, and increased consolidation are among the causes. At least 3 people have been killed following an explosion at an apartment complex in Dallas, Texas. Authorities have stated that more victims may still be found at the scene. The incident occurred at the Dallas apartment complex, and officials are indicating that the search for missing individuals is ongoing. The confirmed fatalities include at least 3 people, reportedly including a child. A rocket made by the company Blue Origin exploded on its launch pad in Florida during a test. Lead with the verified development and keep the scope narrow. There is no threat to the public, according to Brevard County Emergency Management. We will work with our partners to support a thorough investigation of this anomaly, assess near-term mission impacts, and get back to launching rockets. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, said in a statement that it was aware of the incident. The company attempted to place a satellite from AST Space Mobile using its New Glenn rocket, but was unable to get it as far into orbit as intended. The space company successfully launched a New Glenn rocket from Florida last November, landing its reusable booster for the first time. The space technology company was founded in the year 2000 by Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos. Lead with the verified event, action, data point, or official update. The Emma J. candidate's win in the Texas primary may also affect Democrats in the Senate battle, following the defeat of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in a Republican runoff primary on Tuesday night. The outcome marks a defeat for an incumbent who had served in Congress for 23 years, including 12 years as a high-ranking member of the Senate Republican leadership team. This contest set a record for the most expensive Senate primary campaign in U.S. history. The results set up a closely watched contest in November's general election between Paxton and his Democratic opponent, state legislator James Tallarico. Polls have indicated a tight race in Texas, a state that has not elected a Democrat to the Senate since 1988. Paxton, who is 62, has already begun focusing on the general election, airing television advertisements over the past week that attack his opponent as a left-wing extremist. The next test for this state will be the general election contest in November. A federal judge has ruled that New Hampshire must make voter registration easier by allowing applicants to attest to their U.S. citizenship even if they lack the necessary documentation. The lawsuit, filed by groups including the League of Women Voters of New Hampshire and the Forward Foundation, argued the state's current law is among the most restrictive in the nation. The judge also noted that an expert on voter fraud found only 47 instances of wrongful voting across roughly 8.3 million votes recorded between 1998 and 2024. The ruling specifically addressed the removal of the affidavit option, which the judge found created a substantial hurdle for many eligible voters. The lawsuit was brought on behalf of the Coalition for Open Democracy, the League of Women Voters of New Hampshire, the Forward Foundation, and 5 voters. The immediate focus remains on the judge's directive regarding the affidavit option. Louisiana's crawfish industry is facing disruption following changes in its seasonal workforce. Processing plants are reportedly struggling because they cannot secure the necessary guest worker visas for their workers. This situation upends operations for the industry, which relies on this seasonal labor pool. The inability to obtain these visas creates immediate operational challenges for the processing facilities. The core issue centers on the availability of the guest worker visas needed to staff the workforce during peak seasons. The scope of the disruption is currently focused on the processing plant's inability to secure the required visas for their seasonal staff. The immediate focus remains on the status of the guest worker visa program for the region's labor needs.